joining us. This is the France 24 debate. We're wondering what's next for Egypt and for political Islam. With us to talk about it from Cairo, Financial Times correspondent Borzou DARAGAHI. Hamza ZOBAA, member of the Muslim Brotherhood, is also in Cairo. He joins us by telephone. Here in the studio, Egyptian activist Hanna YOUSEF. We're also joined by Iranian-born attorney and professor of geopolitics Ardavan AMIR-ASLANI and Mohammed, Tunisian analyst. Welcome back to all of you. One of the turning points of the past few days came just after Egypt broke with Syria. President Morsi was at a rally. He was listening silently as Salafi clerics insulted Shiites at a rally. What followed was the lynching of 4 Shiites in a village outside of Cairo. That shocked a lot of people in Egypt. The prime minister later condemned the brutal killings. Borzou DARAGAHI, when you look back at that incident, does the blame lie with Morsi for not speaking out, or with the security officials who basically stood idle, according to witnesses, when it happened?
I would say that there was there was also a very horrific sectarian massacre in 2011, just before the revolution, the 2011 revolution, where someone in Alexandria set a bomb at a Coptic church and killed a whole bunch of people. This was a horrible thing. And in both instances, it had the effect of making Egyptians, who are very proud of their country, very proud of the image of their country, just horrified about how low the country had fallen. And I think in that sense, it really outraged people, and it really woke people up. And I think a lot of people, because there is so much Sunni Shiite tension in the Arab world, a lot of people were surprised at the reaction of a lot of Egyptians at this killing. And partly it was because one of the people who was killed was a rather prominent cleric at the Al-Azhar institution, the religious institution. So I think that's the effect. I think that might have had a great effect on getting so many people out into the streets a week or so later in these protests.
And do you think it's maybe tipped the scales against the Muslim Brotherhood? What was the trigger in your view?
In my view, the trigger was actually before that, but that same event that you talked about, but not in the way you're saying. When President Mohammed Morsi at this Syria conference basically said nothing and basically endorsed the sending of Egyptians to Syria to fight in jihad, I think that really caught the military's attention. It caught the interest of the deep state, and it really angered the people in the foreign policy apparatus and the military. Sending jihadis into other countries is a known recipe for reaping the whirlwind of that somewhere down the line. This is something that governments around the region have learned. And for Morsi to tread on that was very dangerous in the eyes of people in the deep state here. And I think that was what actually got the military and the what they call here the Fulul, the old institutions, to sign on to this clamoring protest movement.
Hanna YOUSEF, there's some cynics here saying that another reason is the economy had been run into the ground, and Egypt's military, which has its fingers in lots of pies, which range from everything from real estate to mineral water and petrol stations, that they had an active stake in making sure that the economy didn't go down the drain.
I think everybody in Egypt has an active stake in that the economy not going down, but it's important to note that the army got exactly what they wanted from the Muslim Brotherhood in power in the constitution. They got their economy to be completely separated from the state with no transparency. They have they are part of the final say in national security matters, and they have now constitutional right to court-martial civilians, and there are more things. So I think that the military.
Does it trouble you when you see that as a result of this, that the activists are cheering the same military that carried out virginity tests on women?
I think one should not say that the activists are cheering for the military. Most of the activists that I know and I follow are wary They are happy for that the military stood down and did what the people were asking of the military to do. There was yesterday before the statement of the army, there was tens of thousands around the Republican Guard asking them or demanding to go and arrest Morsi. So at this point, most of the activists I know and follow, they are saying, okay, we're a step forward, but we are very wary. There aren't many activists who are cheering. Most of the people who are cheering are the people who are relieved that what many people call a nightmare is over. Because the nightmare of the Muslim Brotherhood is not just economic, and we were talking about democratically elected. That's one thing is to get democratically elected, another thing is to keep your legitimacy. When you give yourself unconditional powers, when you put yourself above the law, when you incite for sectarian violence, for example, that you mentioned the Syria conference, and also there has been the Muslim Brotherhood has participated in propaganda in violence against Christians, and there has been excessive violence, horrible violence against protesters. You no longer have legitimacy.
Right, and the Prime Minister, when there was the killing of those Shiites in that village, by the way, did condemn those killings after it happened, should be pointed out. We have a tweet from King Yusuf saying, "I'm not a supporter of Morsi and the Muslim Brotherhood, but in my dictionary, an army taking over, call it whatever you want, is a coup d'etat and is wrong." It's time for our Media Buzz segment. We're going to get some more reactions. We're joined at this point by James Creedon. James, refresh our memories, because Morsi wasn't always discredited in the eyes of public opinion, nor in the eyes of the international community.
Well, there's one front page that has been shared a lot today, Francois, on social media. That's Time magazine's front page of Mohammed Morsi towards the end of last year, the most important man in the Middle East. So a lot of people were sharing that, showing the irony of the situation, I suppose, and how quickly things have turned around in Egypt. And I suppose, as to show the contrast, that is tomorrow's front page of The Economist, Egypt's tragedy. Moving on to some other front pages that are of interest, or other headlines. The street is angry with Obama. Now, this is, I suppose, if we're to look at country by country reaction, that's something that the US is really going to have to deal with. That banner there says Obama supports terrorism. This is on the Courrier International website. And where is it? There was another. I can't find it right now, but there are several street banners that have been shared on social media that's showing the degree to which there is a lot of hostile sentiment towards the United States for their support of the Muslim Brotherhood. And I suppose losing credibility on that front.
Wait, let me ask Borzou Daragahi about this. Borzou, hostility towards the United States for supporting the Muslim Brotherhood, but the U.S., which also gives $1.3 billion of aid a year to the army. Borzou Daragahi? All right.
Well, in the meantime, I'll show you some other reactions from across the region, I suppose. A lot of people looking towards Tunisia at the moment, and clearly because of the Islamist government in power there. One incident that attracted the attention of the capitalist weekly magazine in Tunisia is a tweet from the son of the Prime Minister in Tunisia. And basically what he said on his Twitter page, his name is Hichem Larayeh, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, son of Ali Larayeh. And he basically made a call for jihad, and saying that the Quran is our constitution, it always has been, etc. And he said that he himself is prepared to go on jihad on his Facebook page in Egypt. So that's clearly unwelcome, in particular on a day when Ennahda has been trying to put, forward a pretty respectable face with François Hollande's visit, etc., and trying to gloss over all of those uncomfortable questions about what's happening with the Muslim Brotherhood and political Islam in general.
Mohammed Hanid, your reaction to that tweet?
I don't think that he represents any more much, but when we put the focus on the behavior of one person, anybody can make any mistake. But I do not think that this represents neither the Tunisian people nor the government.
I think on that point, a lot of people tend to focus on those little issues, yes, and it's often not representative. But we have another example of it. This is François Hollande making a bit of a boo-boo, I think you could say, in Tunis earlier today. He was asked about the events in Egypt, and a bit of a slip of the tongue, which the media, I suppose, found somewhat amusing.
France has taken note of what happened in Tunisia. I'm sorry. I have also taken note of the situation in Tunisia. which itself is undergoing a democratic transition.
All right, so Hollande doing a good job there of rolling with the punches.
Yes.
In his more serious statement, he called the coup a failure, but it wasn't as clear-cut in what he said as his host. Let's listen to Tunisia's president.
We clearly regret the intervention of the army in a political process. All this is always a sign of grave political crisis that can be worsened by such an intervention because it can lead to violence and terrorism. We ask our Egyptian brothers to control the situation and to avoid worsening divides.
All right, and looking to some other reaction online, François, across the Middle East, I suppose. These are a couple of tweets from Sultan Al-Qasemi, who was one of the biggest Twitter commentators on events in the Middle East. The Brotherhood, abandoned by its closest friends. Qatar praises the role of the Egyptian military. So I suppose it shows the tough situation that governments in the region have been put in. He seems to be quite pleased to see the Qatari government squirming. Can't get enough of this. Qatar praises the Egyptian army's role in safeguarding Egypt's national security, bearing in mind that Qatar funded the Egyptian government quite considerably. And one last item. This is in the Hurriyet Daily News in English. It's a Turkish newspaper. From Egypt to Turkey, is the problem Islam? Now, I think there's some interesting comments here. While the authoritarian tendencies of the Islamists are undeniably clear, the secularists who oppose them are hardly any different, says this commentator. In Egypt, the major concern with Morsi is that he will become the new Mubarak, who was obviously very secular. And in Turkey, everything Erdogan is criticised for, nepotism, imposing a new way of life, silencing opponents, was accomplished with steroids by his secularist predecessors. So I suppose, what would you say?
Again, it gets back to the issue of Morsi's record. Thanks for that, James Creedon. And thanks for our Media Buzz segment. I know you'll be back later on. And speaking of reactions from Turkey, another unequivocal one, this one from the Turkish foreign minister. He denounces the coup.
No matter what the reason was, it's unacceptable for a government who came to power through democratic elections to be toppled through illicit means, and even more, a military coup. A national compromise can only be reached through contributions of democratic institutions and activists, the opposition as well as NGOs. This coup shouldn't overshadow the success of the revolution of January the 25th.
Ardavan, AMIR-ASLANI, what's your feeling on Turkey's reaction to this situation?
Ahmed Davutoglu is the great theoretician of the new Ottomanism that Turkey is trying to implement. It is fundamental what he just said, because what you're seeing now is a massive dichotomy between Turkey's position and that of Persian Gulf Arabs. It was mentioned in one of your reports that UAE is extremely satisfied with the outcome. Saudi Arabia's king sent a telegram congratulating the Egyptian people. But here you have Turkey, who until a few months ago was considered as an ally of the Persian Gulf Arabs in the Syria crisis, who is on a clash course with all of them, officially calling this event for what it should be called, a coup d'etat against a legitimate government, and condemning it. And if you've noticed, you didn't mention it in your report, but the Iranians, although they did not congratulate anyone, they didn't condemn anyone. They had a rather measured approach, which is closer to that of Turkey than of anybody else. So this means basically that you're going to see a huge separation occurring between Turkey and the position of Persian Gulf Arabs, and Turkey getting closer to Iran. Let us not also forget that what is happening over here in Turkey is that you have the Turkish equivalent of the Muslim Brotherhood in power over there. That's the reality. So they're seeing a sister party, legitimately elected, being overthrown. One other point that needs to be mentioned over here, and accidentally things happen to fall at the right time on the calendar, the abdication of the Emir of Qatar and acknowledging a de facto disastrous consequence of their adventurous foreign policy from Libya to Syria and now Egypt, which means that we are going towards a scenario whereby Qatar is going to go back to sleep.
All right, let's pick up on that point and focus squarely on those reactions. Before we talk about Qatar, the reaction of the King of Saudi Arabia. He says, in the name of the people of Saudi Arabia and on my behalf, we congratulate your leadership of Egypt in this critical period of its history. Now, the new Emir of Qatar, it's only his second week on the job, He offered congratulations as well, although a lot more measured, and that's understandable, seeing as Borzou Daragahi's newspaper, the Financial Times, points out, the Qataris, under the father of 33-year-old Sheikh Tamim, poured $8 billion to prop up the Morsi government. The FT, which writes that Qatar got it, we're quoting an economist saying, Qatar got it wrong in Libya, then Syria. Now billions of dollars could go down the pan in Egypt. That money was meant to buy political advantage, but they backed the wrong horse. Borzou, are we all being a bit hasty at this point as to know who the right horse is?
Well, I mean, this is a very, very fluid situation in the Arab world right now. And if we just go back a little bit to the beginning of the Arab Spring, we'll recall that there was this massive wave, this political change. And no one in the region, no regional powers, no world powers knew quite what to do with it. And so you're still in this period where people are trying to figure out how to ride this wave, how to come out on top once the wave settles.
So Borzou, who's behind the curve? When you hear Ardavan here mentioning, is it the Turks or is it the Gulf states?
I mean, it's still too early to tell, but I think that Erdogan's and the Gulf states' brand of authoritarian politics are both a little bit behind the times, given the cultural changes, the social changes that have happened in the Arab world, the irreverence, the disrespect of the youth towards their leaders, the humorous, sarcastic tone of young people who are leading these uprisings. I think they're all behind the times and behind the zeitgeist, as it were.
All right, Mohammed HNID, I guess you can be a little bbit smugger than everybody else because in Tunisia, you decided to first write a constitution, then elect a president.
Elect the president, yes. I would just like to correct an information. Your guest from the United States spoke about the Coptic Church when there was an explosion. I would like just to correct that the investigation shown that the Prime Minister and the son of Mubarak, Jamal Mubarak, and the Minister Habib Al-Adli were behind the explosion. This first. Second, for Tunisia, speaking about Tunisia, I do not think that the Egyptian revolution, what the Tunisian revolution gave to the Egyptian revolution, is not the same reaction back for what the Egyptian failure, let's say, will give to the Tunisian revolution. I think that we are going in Tunis in the right way. I think that there are no threats in Tunisia like the media, international speaking, are speaking today about Islamist terror in Tunisia, and everyone knows.
It has been a bumpy ride, though. There was most notably the political assassination of a prominent leftist political leader.
Till now, François, we don't know who is behind, and many accusations show people in the opposition who are responsible for this assassination for Shukri Belaid. When I say to the free world in the United States who are speaking about freedom of press,
Wait, hang on a second. When you say in the opposition, which opposition do you mean?
Yeah, the opposition, the left opposition, and we are
leftists would have killed their own leader.
Yes, we are speaking today because there was a near approach, a coalition between Nida Tunis and the left, and Shukri Belaid was the first person who are opposite to this coalition. So we eliminated the bad guy.
Do you think that's credible?
I don't know. Many opposition is possible, but if we accuse the others who are in power, what they will win from eliminating Shukri Belaid? Nothing. It's not logic. But what shocked me really, that no media in the world are speaking how the military closed 5 or 6 television, and they, with a brutal way, arrested all the people working in a station and media station. How we can speak about freedom of expression? How can we send messages to the Arab world when you are speaking of freedom of women, freedom of expression, rights? How can we do rights in the Arab world with military shows? How can we live freely? How can we express ourselves? How can we develop our nation with dictatorships that all the world is agree, even the Arab Gulf Persian countries are with? How can we do that? How can we build ourselves with dictatorships imposed to us, with the Americans, European, all are okay that those people rules us?
Hanna YOUSEF, your thoughts?
My thoughts are, with all due respect, that this is the same rhetoric as the Muslim Brotherhood has been saying in Egypt, with all due respect. We're talking about the reaction on dictatorship imposed upon us, forgetting that 22 million Egyptians signed a petition withdrawing confidence from Morsi, asking for a new elections. That is more than the 11 million who voted for Morsi.
And the others?
Excuse me. And 20 million, an estimated 20 million, went to the street and they made them ultimatum. You step down or we will make an open sit-in, general strike, escalated into civil disobedience. And there's 20 million is also more than 50% of the population over 18 years. So we can say that it is a threat to representative democracy the way that it's defined in the book, defined by the states that are actually supporting Morsi. Then yes, it's not following these rules, but the people went out and they had their say and they forced upon the change that they wanted. So will the military continue to take a step back? That is a question that we will wait to see. But to call this a dictatorship imposed upon us when there's 20 million people in the street, that I find this interesting. And just a small comment about Tunisia. Hordes of Tunisians went out and celebrated when Morsi was deposed. So I think the people in power in Tunisia are quite wary and quite, I can say, worried about what this effect can have in Tunisia.
Borzou Daragahi, you've traveled to both countries. Your thoughts?
Well, I just wanted to quickly correct, even the Islamist-dominated government of Tunisia has accused Salafis, hardline Islamists, in the killing of Shukri Bil Aid, and not liberal or leftist, his liberal and leftist supporters. You know, this is a government in Egypt. It's in a very difficult situation. This government performed so poorly. It managed to alienate so many people that even right now, when you go to the Islamist camp, the pro-Morsi camp, the sit-in that's being held in front of the Rabah al-Adwiya Mosque in Eastern Cairo, even those people are not so enthusiastic about supporting this government. We got to understand this is a very, very unusual situation. Morsi was democratically elected. However, he performed very, 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 very badly. And unfortunately, in the current situation, there is no recall mechanism. There's no impeachment mechanism that would work because the Brotherhood controls the very, very usually insignificant upper chamber of parliament. So there is no way that the people could voice their discontent with the government through official channels. So in a way, their hand was forced. They had to go into the streets in this way and call upon the military. It's an ugly situation, as your activist guest was pointing out. A lot of the activists are not happy with the military. They're suspicious of the military, but they were left with no choice.
All right, we have a Twitter comment from Jean. The mistakes made by Egyptians, I don't know whether it's Jean or Jean, by the way. The mistakes made by Egyptians were that they went to elections without having a constitution first. We've said it before. It is a bit of a trite statement at this point. There is a learning curve on what's going on. When you look back at 2.5 years ago in the overthrow of Mubarak, would you say that the glass is half full or half empty, Ardavan?
I am very, very worried about the future of Egypt. You know, the principle of democracy is that you elect a party and they become majority. You know, these kind of comments would imply the socialists in France control the parliament. It's a tragedy. People a year after François Hollande are unhappy. Let's go to the streets and change the government. You can't behave that way. Otherwise, it's going to be a permanent situation of coup d'etats. There's a democracy. There's a process. Now, one of your
but you're an
comments,
attorney here.
it's important here, just one comment.
You're an attorney.
Yeah.
The idea that there aren't enough institutional checks and balances is the point Borzou was making.
But it's up to the Egyptian people to decide. There is a constitution. There were people who were authorized to sit behind the desk to approve that constitution, although one can question the Islamic tendency of that constitution. But at the end of the day, everyone was invited to participate in drafting of that constitution. There was a tweet over here mentioning the fact that Morsi is going to become the next Mubarak. I don't think so. What is going to happen now is that those who voted for Morsi, the Muslim Brotherhood, which is a century-old political organization, they're going to go underground now. He's not going to become the next Mubarak. He may become the next Allende.
All right. Well, That's a bold prediction. We're going to leave it on that point. I want to thank you, Ardavan AMIR-ASLANI. I want to thank Mohammed, HNID, Hanna YOUSEF. I want to thank Borzou DARAGAHI for joining us from Cairo. Apologies for the issues we had with the line with Hamza of the Muslim Brotherhood, who's also in Cairo. Thank you for being with us here in the France 24 debate.